What is up, you guys? My name is Shelby. Welcome back to my channel, and today on Drink But Think, we're going to be talking about hangovers. Surprisingly, in the scientific community, there's not a lot of literature on hangovers, and so we're going to look at a 1998 paper by Swift and Davidson, which talks about the alcohol hangover itself and possible mechanisms and mediators. But first, let's pop one open, and get into it. What is a hangover? Well, if you've had one, you probably know, but it is a combination of all the physical and mental symptoms that follow drinking large amounts of alcohol. The signs and symptoms of a hangover. Picture this with me. You wake up after a night of drinking. The first thing you might notice is you're extremely thirsty. That is due to hydration. Secondly, you might have a really bad headache and you notice it. You could be irritable, have dizziness, or even vertigo. Those are major signs of an alcohol hangover. And then alcohol itself will irritate your stomach lining, and that's what gives you symptoms such as an irritated stomach with stomach pains, nausea, and vomiting. You might have sensitivity to light and sound. If somebody walks into the room, turns on the light, and starts yelling at you, it's not going to feel great. And then throughout the day, you might notice that you're extremely fatigued. That is also a sign of an alcohol hangover. Finally, you're gonna have a low blood sugar, and that can lead to a lot of things, including tremors and sweating. No matter how, when, or how much alcohol you consume, it's generally agreed upon that your hangover symptoms will reach their peak at a BAC, or a blood alcohol content, of 0. And the severity of that hangover is determined by a number of controllable and uncontrollable factors. There is extremely high variability from person to person, which can affect the severity of a hangover. This includes things such as gender, age, and certain genetic variants involved in the alcohol metabolism process. The controllable factors would be things which you can control, including how much alcohol did you drink, what kind of alcohol did you drink, and even how quickly did you drink it. The point of these videos is to discuss the prevention and intervention steps that you can take before, after, and during your alcohol consumption, which can decrease the severity of your hangovers. And finally, the concept of alcohol tolerance does exist, and that's due to both your genetics and your behaviors, and can have a great effect on how bad your hangovers are. So what causes your hangovers? The first, most obvious answer is alcohol itself. The first reason this occurs is alcohol is a diuretic. So there's a protein called vasopressin. The role of this protein is to open up water channels in the kidney to reabsorb water into the body rather than being excreted. Alcohol is known to inhibit the protein vasopressin, and the result of that is you have increased urination. This may not seem like too big of a deal, but increased urination can lead to both dehydration, which we talked about, and an electrolyte imbalance. As I said before, alcohol causes irritation to your stomach lining, and the reason this leads to nausea, abdominal pain, and vomiting is because of the increased production of stomach acid. And unfortunately, in chronic alcohol abuse patients, this can lead to painful sores in the stomach tissue, also known as stomach ulcers. One thing that many people don't know is that alcohol can cause you to have low blood sugar. Your liver is a very important organ, and one of its many functions is to regulate the amount of glucose in your blood. So it can produce and then store and then release this glucose into your bloodstream, and when that's not functioning properly, you can have irregular glucose blood levels. This is what happens when you ingest alcohol. So the alcohol ingestion results in fatty liver, and it also causes the buildup of lactic acid. Both of these inhibit glucose production in the liver, and because glucose is kind of the energy source for your brain, that leads to things such as mood issues, fatigue, and weakness. It is really interesting to note that in chronic alcohol abuse patients, many of them have hypoglycemia, or a low amount of glucose in the blood. And if you've ever woken up extremely tired after drinking, that is because alcohol causes irregularities in your sleep, and it results in shorter and lower quality sleep. It can do one of two things. It can induce sleep apnea, especially in people who are already predisposed, where you just can't breathe correctly while you're sleeping. And then second of all, alcohol consumption can affect the cortisol levels in your body, and cortisol levels regulate your circadian rhythms and your sleep patterns. The onset of REM sleep is delayed after consuming alcohol, but also the total amount of REM sleep is decreased when you drink. And this graph right here gives you a pretty good idea of what bad sleep looks like due to the consumption of alcohol. The orange line you see here is after alcohol is ingested, and the white line would be your normal sleep patterns. So you fall to sleep faster, but you don't get the correct amount of REM sleep that you need. The second reason why you might be experiencing a hangover is due to alcohol withdrawal. Now, a lot of times people only think of this in the case of chronic alcohol abuse, but a lot of scientists think that this phenomenon that's on a bigger scale in that case can occur on a smaller scale after just a single night of drinking. Alcohol is a known depressant, so what that means is it will decrease the sensitivity of the central nervous system. Now, in chronic cases especially, the central nervous system will then make adjustments in order to increase the sensitivity of the system. And at this point, you have a steady state. Now, once the alcohol is removed, however, you are going to have a central nervous system that remains hyperexcitable. Now, this hyperexcitability leads to symptoms such as tremors, sweating, and rapid irregular heartbeat. The third reason you may have an alcohol hangover is due to the process of alcohol metabolism. When we're talking about consuming alcohol, we're usually talking about the chemical ethanol. So it enters your body and then needs to be metabolized. It is taken up by an enzyme known as alcohol dehydrogenase and is converted to acetaldehyde. That is then taken up by an enzyme called aldehyde dehydrogenase and is converted to acetate. Acetaldehyde is an intermediate in this process, so it normally is just converted quickly and does not accumulate. However, in some people who have variations in the aldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme, the acetaldehyde can build up. The result of this is illness, flush, and sweating. It's commonly referred to as Asian flush, and it is more frequent in Asian populations. And while Asian flush can occur by consuming just small amounts of alcohol, many scientists have suggested that the presence of acetaldehyde during alcohol metabolism is enough to contribute to the symptoms of a hangover. The final thing that can contribute to your hangover symptoms would be what's known as congeners. You may have heard of these, but they are just small biologically active compounds which are present in the alcohol but are not the ethanol themselves. And a lot of times they're included because they give alcohol character. They can be produced during fermentation, aging, or sometimes even just added in. And while they contribute to the effects of intoxication, they can also contribute to the effects of the hangover. One of these congeners is methanol. Methanol is actually an alcohol if you think about it, but compared to ethanol, they have two different structures. And this is the difference between a carbon and two hydrogens. So while alcohol is mostly made of ethanol, it can also contain small amounts of methanol as well. The methanol metabolism process is extremely similar to the ethanol metabolism process and actually uses the same two enzymes. So you begin with methanol, and then that is converted by alcohol dehydrogenase into formaldehyde. After that, that is converted by aldehyde dehydrogenase into formic acid. Now, in large quantities, formaldehyde and formic acid are both extremely toxic to the body. It is well documented that the presence of methanol in alcohols contributes to hangover symptoms. People have been trying to treat their hangovers probably since people started drinking alcohol. And while many treatments have been proposed, very few treatments have undergone rigorous scientific investigation. A lot of research still needs to be done, and the purpose of these videos is to give you guys an idea of how hangovers occur, but also what the possible solutions could be. There is a lot of products on the market which I'd like to investigate to see if there's any scientific backing for their claims that they have come up with a hangover cure. And in the meantime, here are some less obvious solutions for how to not have bad hangovers. The first would probably just be to drink less and to not drink to get drunk. That's probably my best pieces of advice. However, you can also drink alcohol with less congeners in it. That's lighter looking drinks, and that could decrease your hangover severity. In addition, the intakes of complex carbohydrates, such as toast or crackers, can attack the low blood sugar issue. Adequate sleep before a night of drinking can combat the fatigue that you're going to experience because of lower quality sleep during drinking. And then it's really important to drink water and things with electrolytes in them because of the dehydration symptoms we talked about earlier. There are medications for certain symptoms. A lot of people will take antacids for their stomach pain, and then some will take ibuprofen for headaches. That is not necessarily a bad idea, but do it within reason. And then there is not evidence to say that caffeine helps at all, although a lot of people believe that, and I would never recommend drinking more. It sounds like a downward spiral and a bad idea. And finally, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any products that are on the market which claim to cure hangovers or alleviate the symptoms and you would like me to investigate it, feel free to leave a comment down below. We would always appreciate a like and a subscribe to this channel if you like the content. And just thank you guys so much for watching. I really enjoy this. Never forget, you guys, it is 5 o'clock somewhere.